Ever since I was a child, I was fascinated with the book of Bereshit, which we're currently reading in the synagogue. The powerful stories, the drama, always held my attention. But as I grew older, I realised that these stories raised some serious issues. None more than the very opening parasha, which begins with ecstasy and ends in despondency. In the opening chapter, we see God busily engaged in the creation of his masterpiece. At the end of each day's work, he observes it, it is good. God was satisfied. And once he had completed his work, God observed all that he had made when he told me, it was superlatively good. God was ecstatic, if we can use such language to describe it. By the time we get to the end of the parasha, we are told by Adonai, the Lord saw ki rabara adam ba'aretz, the man's evil in the earth was great, v'chol yetzim achshavot libo, and all the imaginations of his heart, rak alayom, were completely evil throughout the day. So that vayinachem Adonai ki asat adam ba'aretz, the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, for yitatzel el libo, and he was aggrieved, despair, despondency. However, the key expression here is the term yetzer. Yetzer machshavot libo, normally translated as all the imaginations of his heart, but this is not a good nor accurate translation. Yetzer means an inclination, and our rabbis use it frequently to describe the two inclinations in man. The Yetzer HaTov, the good inclination, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. I believe it was a part of God's plan that Adam and Eve should eat of the tree of knowledge before they left Eden. They had been created in the image of God, and it was therefore essential that they had a godlike awareness of both good and evil before they departed into the world to pursue their destiny. However, within 10 generations, mankind had suppressed the Yetzer HaTov. They had suppressed their awareness of good, with the result that human society became based upon the principle of evil. Rak Ra, perpetual evil. And so God decided that he had to cleanse his world, wash away the sin. However, he was determined to begin again, and he chose the significant man, Noach. And what it says of him is important. Noach ish tzaddik. Noah was a righteous man. He alone had retained his Yetzer HaTov, his good inclination. Tamim haya v'dorotav, normally translated, he was perfect in his generation. Tamim means complete. He, among all his contemporaries, had both a good and evil inclination. He remained complete as God intended man to be. Et Elohim hitanech Noach. With God, Noah walked. Not the Noah walked with God, the emphasis is with God, Noah walked. Noah was determined to walk against the evil currents of his age, and so remain faithful to his God. God said, this is my man. And he repopulates the world. However, within 10 generations, almost inevitably, the Yetzer Hara triumphs. The evil inclination emerges to the surface. Not globally, locally, but enough to attract the anger of God. And of course, the particular example I have in mind are the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities of the plain. You no doubt remember the story. Abraham's nephew Lot is living in Sodom. He receives 2 visitors, not knowing they're angels, brings them into his home to protect them. But the local citizenry gather around Lot's home and demand that he brings out his 2 visitors that they may rape them. But Lot pleads with them. For Yoman, he says, Al na'achai tareu, please, my brothers, don't do such an evil thing. And their response is, they say to him, Gesh hala, come here you. They said, Aichad Balagul, this individual has come to take up residence among us, is a EU resident. Vayishpot Shafot, and now he presumes to pass judgment on our society, on our lifestyle. He passes judgment on our values. Now we shall do even greater evil to you than we propose to do to them. Rakra, total unalloyed evil. And so God again decides to clean up the location. He incinerates it. He sends down his fire and brimstone and cleanses his world once more. But that was by no means the last example. We know that throughout the ages there have been times, periods, locations where Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, has emerged to the surface and dominated man's thinking and behaviour. And we, the Jewish people, know about it better than any other, because we have lived in a society that claimed to acknowledge the Jewish God, a God of love, of compassion, the Christian God. And yet look at the unimaginable suffering they imposed upon our innocent people. They drowned them, they burned them, they drove them forth from humanity. And they did all of this in the name of their loving God. They saw this as being beneficial to the souls of the poor individuals they were murdering, beneficial to their Christian society. They had enshrined the concept of evil at the very core of their beliefs. And undoubtedly, the worst example of this was in the last century, Nazi Germany. The Nazis didn't only kill 6 million Jews, that's more. They killed millions of other innocent individuals. And they claimed that they were doing this for the benefit of humanity. They were ridding humanity of the vermin. And indeed, as the Russians moved westward, hateful Himmler, Yamach Shemo, demanded that the concentration camp should be dismantled because he said the world wouldn't appreciate what they were doing, what they were daring to achieve for mankind. Ra. Total unalloyed evil at the very heart, at the very core of an ideology, of a lifestyle. And what was God's response? Took his time, but he responded. Just as he did with the cities of the plain, where he sent down fire and brimstone. In the case of Nazi Germany, he sent down the ordnance, tens of thousands of bombs, which obliterated German cities, reduced them to rubble. And the people themselves were bombed back to the Stone Age, living among the rubble of their buildings without sufficient food, water, protection, and living in fear, in dread, what the Russians might do to them in view of what their soldiers had done to the Russian people. God will always give his answer, and it will be overwhelming. But the story's not quite over. The principle of evil still flourishes at the core of our most modern and supposedly civilized societies. Take the leader of the Western world. 59 people were gunned down, murdered, meaninglessly. Hundreds more were wounded by a single madman. But what hasn't been appreciated is that bang opposite the location where this horror took place was a gun store where you could buy an armament sufficient to kill many more. They don't see the obvious connection. If the weapons of destruction are available, there will be destruction. But what's the response? This is our culture. This is our right as citizens to bear arms. It's enshrined in our constitution. Now I could understand in the 17th century you needed to bear arms to protect yourself from the Indians whose land you were taking. I can understand that in the 18th century you needed to bear arms to get the greedy British off your back. In the 19th century you needed the arms to slaughter one another in a civil war. But why in the 21st century is there a need to bear arms? For it only results in death and destruction. And yet the response is unmovable. This is our right. It is our constitutional right. Even a leading figure, an influential man like Charlton Heston declared, the only way you'll take my gun away from me is if you prise it loose from my cold, dead fingers. Rakra, total evil, enshrined within the constitution of a great nation. But that's nothing compared to what's going on in the Middle East. A region of the world where for 1600 years they have claimed to acknowledge the one true God. They proclaim him to be Ar-Rahman, the compassionate one, the just one. And look what Arab is doing to Arab. I have in mind, of course, the dominant power, Saudi Arabia, the great supporter of world terrorism. They are bombing, destroying, slaughtering not just soldiers, but innocent women and children. If the Israeli army exploded a single bomb in a playground in Gaza, the outcry throughout the world, the demand to dismantle the state of Israel, boycott, denigrate. And yet this is happening and we don't hear a word. The students who will be quick enough to jump outside the Israeli embassy, quiet, they're silent. Why? We needn't guess. Universities would suffer without the money of Saudi Arabia. The Arabian academics, if they have any, will not be banned, will not be boycotted in this country. But this country has something to answer for. Who is supplying Saudi Arabia with the billions of pounds worth of arms that are destroying the sweet innocent souls? The United Kingdom. Oh, they will tell you it's good for our economy. Apart from which, we're not killing anybody. My response to that would be that which the prophet Nathan gave to King David. You may remember the story. David took the wife of Uriah the Hittite, a faithful servant, made her pregnant, and then had to get rid of her husband, which he orchestrated by commanding his general, place him in front of the hardest, fiercest part of the battle, then leave him to his fate. Poor Uriah dies. David compassionately and magnanimously takes the grieving widow into his home and makes her his wife. And they all lived happily ever after. But they didn't. God sends the prophet Nathan to remonstrate with David. And he says to him in no uncertain terms, O toharagta becheret b'nei Ammon. You killed Uriah with the sword of the Ammonite. What does that mean? The weapon may have been an Ammonite weapon, David, but your hand was on the hilt. You're an accessory to murder. And so I would say to the British government, yes, the weapons belong to Saudi Arabia, but your finger was on the trigger. Your accessories, your part to the institutionalized evil. Now I believe that God is all compassionate and he is patient. But history has shown there are limits to his patience. The time will come when he will again act mightily, overpoweringly. And therefore let us pray that before that happens, mankind will come to its senses. humanity will at long last establish Yetzer HaTov, the principle of good, as the basis of human society and of human compassion and conduct before it's too late.